broadcasting from across the North American continent of the Terran Empire, bringing you our unpopular Star Trek opinions since 2020. This is Code 47.
And we are back. It's the holiday season. And dickory-doo. And I'm not going to finish that because I always thought it was dirty. Anyway, this is the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. I am Trek Lord of West Michigan, Charlie Carden, captain of the USS Grand Petoskey, coming to you on this Christmas Eve. Yes, we are recording on December 23. When you hear us, it'll be past Christmas. So I hope if you celebrate, I hope you had a lovely Christmas holiday. But I am here, as always, with crewman 14th class, red shirt number 12. That would be Peter Stein. Good evening, Peter. Happy holidays.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. Give us some money. Oh, good stuff. Well, cool. Well, we are back as always in our bi-weekly format to talk about our love of Star Trek. We've been cutting things up between bi-weekly recaps of 2 episodes of Star Trek Discovery, and actually learned that we will be getting a little Discovery hiatus in the month of January. We will be getting back to episodes of Star Trek Prodigy and kind of finishing out that, or continuing that season rather. So our next episode will have actually the episode that aired today, which, believe it or not, I was away from home and I didn't watch it first thing. Shame on me.
I wasn't able to see it either, so.
Shame. I guess I don't feel as bad as I could. So I'll watch that over the holiday weekend, and by the time we circle back again, we'll have 2 episodes to talk about, and then we will jump into talking about additional episodes of the animated Star Trek Prodigy. But let's hop right into it right after we talk about this episode's VHS cover of the week. Now, these are I feel bad because I'd love to get a little variety into these. And it's kind of funny because we're talking about each one that we're talking about, because we're in episode 61. We have episode 61 of the original series, which is in the beginning of season 3, and we're just rounding out season 2. But the image of this says 1,000 words. I wonder if this was somehow the inspiration for, like, Cerebro in the X-Men movies, like that we saw in First Class, or maybe, Doc Brown's brain reader in Back to the Future in the 1950s segment.
I could see that one for sure.
Yeah, because it's the episode with the longest. You know what? I'm misrepresenting. Yeah, I feel like this image is actually from the episode with the longest title of any Star Trek, For the World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky, because I thought that's what was going on here, but I must be mistaken. But yeah,
this is McCoy,
right? Spock's Brain, which was the season 3 premiere, or at least it was the broadcast premiere, widely regarded to be the single worst episode of all 800 aired segments of Star Trek. I mean, can you think of a worse one? It's ridiculous. I mean,
Sub Rosa still might be the worst for me.
Bev's hooking up with a ghost. Yes, but I mean, you have an alien society that essentially does exactly what's described in the title. They steal Spock's brain in order to power their society, and hijinks ensue. What can I say? What can I say? That's always the way that works.
It's completely absurd.
Yes, it's completely
plausible. You did a letter writing campaign to bring back Star Trek, and you get this.
You tune in and you're like, you know what? Fuck you, Star Trek. I'm sorry. I'm not editing myself out. Because if I was watching this on September 20th of 1968 when it first aired, I think I probably would have gotten slapped by my mama, because kids didn't talk like that in the 60s and get away with it. But yeah, this was you're right. The show that couldn't get canceled enough kind of set the bar, set the tone for what would finally be its Waterloo, its death rattle, was with this episode. So anyway, that's delightful. But let's get right into the meat of it. We already talked about a news story. Obviously, Discovery is going to be taking a break, but we got 2 episodes to talk about. We got episodes 4 and we have episode 5. So let's jump right on in. Peter, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just forgot the name, so I can't give too much detail. But we did have an announcement of a new Star Trek video game.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
That is a big deal for me, because we haven't had a good Star Trek game in ages.
I mean, they've had that Star Trek Online, and hasn't there been? I don't do the game stuff.
Star Trek Online has been pretty solid. It's not
right,
amazing, but it's pretty great.
But this is like a console. I feel bad that we didn't get prepared. This is like a console, like action game thing happen. Is that what you're talking about?
It's a Telltale game. So basically, what it is it's
a
walk through a narrative story. So you do certain things, but it's guiding you through a story. So it's less intensive as most other games,
okay,
or whatever.
Oh,
but
that's
you get
awesome.
like this fully fleshed out story, and that's like the big thing that they're known for.
So that's awesome. Wow, look at that. This is our lack of details news reporting, because we're like
Star Trek Resurgence.
Yes, that is correct. And I've seen
5 years after Nemesis. So we're returning to the next generation film aesthetic, which I, for one, am a big fan of.
Right, and it's interesting because that is not only where Lower Decks takes place, but it's also where Prodigy takes place. So it's kind of funny that they're really zeroing in on that, 3 to 5 year time period. It could be interesting. There could be some interaction. Who's to say?
Yeah.
But at any rate, all right, let's jump right into talking about Discovery. We got, and Peter, I'm going to kick this over to you. We have episode 4, All Is Possible. Tell us all about it.
So we have, the brief description is, Tilly and Adira lead a team of Starfleet Academy cadets on a training mission that takes a dangerous turn. Ooh, big surprise. Meanwhile, Burnham is pulled into tense negotiations on Navarre.
Oh, man. Would it be aggressive negotiations?
I wish.
They don't have any lightsabers, and there's no lightsabers in Star Wars. I think that might actually end up being the title of this episode. I'm going to start working on it. So, yeah. So we had, and I kind of hinted a little bit about, kind of my frustration, and you and I have talked a little bit about that. My frustration with kind of the ass dragging they're doing with Tilly as a character in this season. And this was kind of this was kind of the pinnacle of that, because she's led on a very generic, boring, let's take all the cadets on a and we're in the shuttlecraft, and nothing could go wrong until something goes wrong, and then the pilot's dead, and then we can't get in touch with anybody. Yeah, and then we can't, and then the shuttle's not safe, and oh, look, there's monsters in the ice, and it's the ice, and we can't go out in the ice. And we have to walk through the ice to get to the high ground. Oh, more Star Wars. We have to walk to ice to get to the high ground.
It's over, Tilly.
It's over, Tilly. I have the high ground. I still didn't see any lightsaber, so I'm still calling it technical on this one. But yeah, my favorite. I remember when April and I were watching this a couple weeks ago. I said, I love that Adira stops. It was either Adira or Tilly or both stopped to give their big speech while being chased by the monster, and the monster took that moment to take a piss break or take a smoke break or take some kind of break where they just you had maybe 90 seconds where the monster stopped advancing on them, and then they started again. So super generic plot development that really just didn't do it for me.
I mean, it was okay. I appreciated the attempt of the juxtaposition between that and the negotiations, where they're trying to get we need to work together bit. And so it's like, here's politics needing to work together. Here's cadets needing to work together. Oh, look, we're all working together.
Right.
Okay.
Family.
And they also had Book doing his thing where he was learning to process things and work together with Culber.
Right, exactly. So you had an A, B, and a C story about love and togetherness and et cetera. Is a good friend of mine would always likes to end her sentences with and et cetera. I mean, I like the whole Navarre thing. That's kind of cool. We definitely see that playing forward into the next episode. But and at the end of it, we have Tilly saying, you know what, I've been blah 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 existential this and that, and I'm just not really feeling it being on a ship anymore. This thing and that thing. I'm going to go teach at Starfleet Academy, even though I'm 22.
Yeah.
So
that was a little strange.
Well, it was no more ridiculous than her being the first officer with the rank of lieutenant. And everybody else on the ship outranked her, but she's the XO. So I thought, I've just kind of grown where I found Tilly as a character in season 1 to be fun and refreshing and quirky and kind of feeling like, oh, she's like every awkward nerdy girl that you've ever met in your life, but she's on Star Trek and it's the 23rd century and blah, blah. Now think that I'm kind of happy where we appear to be leaving her behind.
They
I mean, I
kind of
could,
her out a bit.
yeah, I mean, they're petering her out. I don't know if she really took a big step back from the cast. I don't know if that's official. But I, hate to come right out and say it, but I really will miss her a lick. I had grown really weary of her character. So,
well, they hadn't figured out how to write her any differently.
Right, exactly.
And then and all of a sudden, existential crisis.
Yeah. Work through the existential crisis. So
all the Star Trek films since J.J. Abrams don't know how to deal with rank at all.
Right, exactly. So. Yeah, that really did ruin it. Yeah, rank and the fact that, yes, it's true that in Starfleet, rank advancement, it does not mirror the United States military. I mean, if you look at, I use Commander Riker as a great example because I'm familiar with his background. Season 1 of TNG, the character was 28 years old and he was a commander. He was an 05 rank, which is usually the rank of someone who's in their 40s. If they attended a military academy and started in the military service when they were 22, 25, I would say they would be in their late 30s, early 40s before they would hit a rank like that. Then making captain by maybe 50 because captain is, the top. But again, JJ movie said, "Oh, Kirk, you're 22. Through a couple of twists and turns, you're now the captain of our most advanced ship because this thing and that thing happened." It's just like, bro, come on now.
Yeah.
It's very it just kind of flies in the face. So I don't miss Tilly. Tilly can stay gone, and I'm kind of copacetic with that. It doesn't really bug
the Navarre bit.
What's that? Rap to me. Rap to me.
Yeah, I can't rap. I wish.
Rap, okay, it's not rap with a W, but when I say rap, it's like, that's an expression I use that's more kind of like from the 1970s where somebody's just talking. It's not like Run DMC, which I can try to rap. I love Golden Age rap. I love old rap movies, but I'm not going to throw that on you.
Yeah, I lack the ability.
You're lacking in the rapping?
Yep. It's
Excellent.
A skill or lack thereof.
I understand.
But with Navarre, I kind of liked how they showed all of the political compromise and the machinations. Some of it was a little bit too transparent of like, okay, I know what they're doing here.
Right.
But the only quibble that I have with it is that it ended with Burnham being the solution is I'm going to be on a council again. Like it just, for me, it's one of those like, old Star Trek would be like Kirk or Picard or Sisko would be like, we need a committee. Let's pick some of our best people, and here you go. Not volunteering. And I understand why they made her do it because, I'm a citizen of the Federation and Vulcan. But it was just one of those.
Right.
I'm kind of tired of her being the solution to everything, and this was kind of them going back to that. And I was like,
so to quote another song, which I'll toss you a lyric out: "She's every woman. It's all in her. She's every woman." Oh my God. Did I find a new title for the episode?
Maybe.
Oh, maybe. All right. Let's move on to the examples. Episode 5. All right. And I will read this. Burnham and Book race to evacuate a group of stranded colonists in the Anomaly's path. Again, back to the Anomaly, as it couldn't get too far away from the Anomaly, as one of the Federation's brightest scientists comes aboard the USS Discovery to do high-stakes research with Saru and Stamets. Ooh, high-stakes research. Tell me all about it.
Oh, yeah. High-stakes research. So we get the classic, like, we have this zany, grumpy scientist shows up who can't give the time of day to the crew. Like, that's a pretty classic trope. But he comes on and they're researching the DM.
The DMV. Yeah, it is the DMA.
Yeah.
Which to me, again, totally sounds like it could be a rap. Maybe because I love Run DMC, the DMA, Run DMA. All right, changing it again. Keep going. Keep talking, my friend.
I keep thinking DMV like Department of Motor Vehicles.
Exactly.
And then they're going to sit there and be slow which they kind of are. They take all the episode to figure it out. But you have them working as the B plot, doing some research on the DMA. And then the main plot is the DMA is moving and it could potentially destroy a colony. Well, not a colony, just an asteroid city, I guess. And so they're like, we're going to go evacuate everybody. So they bring like 5 starships and then they start beaming everybody up. And then it's revealed that, there's prisoners underneath this shielded bunker. And Burnham's like, we need to go rescue them, but they're examples and we can't let them go.
Right, exactly. Which is just like, this jams right into your very common, like, but that's not how the Federation works, because blah, 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 and all lives are precious. And this is the exact plot line of an episode of Voyager called Repentance in season 7. Do you remember that Voyager ends up taking on the prisoners from a penal vessel, and they had to create a little prison in the cargo bay. And the society in question, it's the family of the victim that gets to ultimately decide the fate of the prisoner. And one of the prisoners is a character actor who you've seen in everything, is befriended by Neelix, and it's found out that this guy has a correctable medical like defect in his brain, and they fix it. And so then he's not a bad guy anymore. But ultimately, the family says, "Yeah, we still kind of want you to pay the price." So, and he does. So. And that is interesting to me, and I thought that this episode was interesting. I love the little killer. What was it? The killer turtles with the
killer beetles.
The killer beetles, yeah. The Killer Beatles, which, as I understand it, was a rejected name from the famous pop group in the early 1960s. No, I'm just kidding. The Killer Beatles. They actually, little Beatles trivia. One of the prior names of that group was the Silver Beatles. So this could kind of be that. Yeah, I kind of dug it. They left a little intrigue, and again, you and I both could have watched episode 6 today, and we didn't. So kind of shame on us, but we're going to get to that next time. But you were left with the strong impression that Johnny Science Guy, whose name is, what's the name of Johnny Science Guy?
Ruan Tarka.
Yeah, I mean he's kind of a dipshit. He's
kind of Ryzen, one of the first ones that we've seen since Deep Space Nine.
Right, exactly. But he's decidedly non-Ryzen because he's kind of an asshole. And everybody on Ryza is all about it's all about Jamaharon and getting down and all that kind of stuff. And that's not really what we got going on here. So
he yells at Saru's face, that was a
right. And then you got to see Saru yell back. He's like, "Brrr." It was pretty cool. But yeah, you're left with a pretty solid impression that Tarka knows a little bit too much about what's
letting on.
And that's really not gonna be great, but it does drive intrigue. Yeah. It just really does drive intrigue, and you see a lot of great stuff with that in this episode. And also Culber has a great arc, I thought. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, I just have something about the end, so we can talk about the rest of the episode first. But Culber does have a pretty good arc with this one. I thought it was the one thing that was a little interesting for me, and I don't know if you have a different insight on this one, was how they're using Kovich as kind of like another sort of psychological sounding board. Like he's talking to Culber about what Culber is feeling, and like
you're talking about you're talking about David Cronenberg, director David Cronenberg. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's awesome, and I love it how everybody's in this. But nope, I'm a hologram. I'm out. So you never really know. But yeah, I thought that was great, and of course, I as a student of humanity myself, I have a great interest in clinical psychology and this kind of stuff. So yeah, I really do. I really do like that, and I really thought that was great. And it's interesting that he is Culber is a medical doctor on board the ship, but he's not the chief medical officer, but he also became the ship's counselor, which was not something that they even had in the 23rd century that we ever saw. So it's interesting to see him wearing a bunch of hats. It's interesting to hear him talk a little bit about his past and his family. He was recalling a death ceremony for a relative where they had they kind of described it kind of they kind of had a weekend at Bernie's, a dead relative, something doing the service.
That do that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I loved it, but yeah, I think that we're absolutely left with knowing that our Ryzian guy is kind of a dirty bird. So I guess we will find out.
I'm of the opinion that it's not necessarily him as a Ryzen.
Okay.
Because at the very end of the episode, he's talking to who is he talking to?
I was talking to it was Stamets.
He's talking to Stamets, and then Book is the one at the end.
Right.
So he's talking to Book, and then he kind of reaches up and rubs the back of his neck after he gives like an idea that he knows something, and we see a little circular mark. And I'm thinking,
he's chained. That he's chained.
Right? No, not chain. I'm thinking that he might be that they might be bringing back the bluegill.
Oh my God! Literally, when you said, you know what, I didn't make that connection until you started talking, and then I'm zeroed in on that because that's a great plot line that was revisited in the post series DS9 novels, which are of course not canon, so they can do anything with it. But wow, good catch, Peter. I like that. I like that idea a lot.
It's also explored in the fan series that I work on, so that's why I'm really aware of it.
But of course, that's really where it's at. So, well, cool. Okay, so in our next episode, we will tackle episode 6, and then I believe we'll also tackle the return of Prodigy, which would be great. So we'll still have 2 episodes to talk about, and we will then finish what we're going to start right now because we're going to launch into segment 2, which is, what is it called, Peter?
It's been a long road.
Getting from there to here. That's right. We are now approaching the 3/4 mark of season 2 of Star Trek, the original series. On the whole, I think we've got some better episodes to talk about here. So let's get the party started. I will admit that I started a new job recently. I haven't really been keeping up on my rewatches, but again, I'm so super familiar with a lot of these episodes that I watched probably 4 or 5 of the 7 that we're going to talk about. So I will probably let you talk about the first one because that is not one that I rewatch, even though I'm very familiar with it. But I'll let you take that one.
Yeah. So the first one, episode 14, I believe, is directed by Joseph Pevney, written by Robert Bloch, aired on December 22nd, 1967. So yesterday.
Ooh. Ooh.
Wolf in the Fold.
You bet. And it starts with my favorite piece of music. Click, click.
Yeah, the dancing cantina music or whatever.
Very good. But anyway, take it away.
So, Mr. Scott is implicated in a series of bizarre murders on planet Argalius during a planned break for Scotty, Kirk, and... Whoa, okay. On planet Argalius during a planned break, Scotty, Kirk, and Bones encounter a series of events where Scotty is blamed for murdering 3 women, 2 local to the planet, and 1 crew member aboard the Enterprise, Lieutenant Tracy. The prefect wants to investigate the murder on the planet, but all methods seem futile. Once aboard the Enterprise, the computer, fed with all the medical records of Scotty, begins analyzing Scotty's response to all of the questions. The committee realizes that Scotty is not lying, and indeed someone or something else is responsible for the murder. The committee eventually finds that the thing resembles Jack the Ripper from ancient Earth, and has been known to exist throughout the 20th, 21st century, and so on, on all systems between Earth and Argalius. Upon further analysis, Hengist, security advisor to the prefect, is found to be possessed with the shifter that causes fear in humanoids and kills them. The thing takes control of the Enterprise and Enterprise computer and threatens to kill them all. Spock overrides the controls to manual, overloads the computer banks to calculate the last digit of pi, classic, making the thing impaired for 2 hours while Bones tranquilizes the entire crew. The thing is captured inside Hengist. Finally, and it says he's transported to the furthest regions of the galaxy? No, he is transported just generally outside the ship into a bazillion pieces.
Right, because the transporter doesn't have the capacity to transport against. Yeah, exactly. So I'm getting this off Wikipedia, but it's incumbent upon our talents to summarize it better. I dug this episode. I probably really should have watched it again, but we'll call season 2 kind of the season of Scotty just getting the shaft. He's died like in 2 or 3 episodes, and then in this, he's possessed by a murdering spirit. I mean, what else? Here's a great parallel. Who else gets the shaft who happens to wear an engineering uniform in Star Trek? That would be Geordi. Because what happens to Geordi? He never gets the girl, gets kidnapped by Romulans. He ends up in a mud pit with a Romulan stranded on a planet.
His mom's ship, sink into oblivion after.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Loses his mom, but it gets tormented by some weird space alien that pretends to be his mom. I mean, everything for Geordi really sucks. He doesn't, and it's kind of the same thing for Scotty, because what happens is Scotty goes on, his nephew joined Starfleet and he's on the Enterprise and he dies, and Scotty has to be there when he dies. and then in the end, Scotty gets trapped in a transporter for 75 years, and then he's in the next generation. So, I mean, I guess in the end, he gets a second lease on life, but his life in the 23rd century really blows. So I really do hope that, after we don't see him, after he kind of flies off into the sunset on that shuttlecraft at the end of Relics, the season 6 of TNG, that things are really going better for him, because they are not going better for him in this episode. It really sucks.
No, but
overall, my goodness,
good episode.
Overall, I enjoyed it.
Definitely Scotty as a punching bag.
No doubt about it. But anyway, nothing can compare with what comes up next, which is probably on most people's at least number 2 of best episodes of the series.
This was like one of the few episodes that won an award.
Gotcha. Okay. But yeah, this was probably second only to City on the Edge of Forever, which was written by Harlan Ellison, and it's at the end of season 1. But this is The Trouble with Tribbles, written by Joseph Pevney, directed by David Gerard. Or maybe that was the other way around. Yeah. David Gerard was the writer. Joseph Pevney is kind of a staff director, so he does a lot of stuff. This aired December 29, 1967, so again, right around this time. But yeah, this is great. Go on. I mean, everybody knows the plot, but I'll just break it down. Tribbles, purry, fluffy, and fertile creatures disrupt the exploitation of a disputed planet the Klingons and the Federation are squabbling over. The Enterprise reports to Space Station K7 on the edge of the neutral zone. The station administrator, Mr. Barris, asks Kirk to provide protection for the storage grain that will help, obviously, the Enterprise and the Federation keep the Klingons from capturing this vital planet. Boy, this is a really long and unnecessary. But anyway, Uhura and Chekhov are hanging out in the bar with this dude, Cyrano Jones, who is carrying this furry little Tribble thing. He gives one to Uhura. It ends up back on the ship. We find out that, and it's funny because we obviously get exponential backstory on the Tribbles with the trouble with Edward, Star Trek, the short treks following Discovery Season 2. So you get a little backstory and found out that they were actually created or weaponized by a Starfleet officer a couple years before this. But anyway, the Tribbles reproduce exponentially. They end up all over the Enterprise. They end up in the storage grains, in the vent system, which gives us, of course, the famous Kirk and a pile of Tribbles visual, which we've all been enjoying for 50 years. It's later revealed that the crop was poisoned by a Klingon spy who has been Arn Darvin, who has been posing all along, who looked like, I kid you not, I've always thought this, particularly because the outfit that he was wearing looked like a early Beatles John Lennon. Take a good look at his face. And then take a good look at John Lennon from one of the early Beatles album covers with the Beatles, or Please Please Me, looks exactly the same. Kirk foils the plot. They get away. They leave Cyrano Jones to collect all the Tribbles on the station, and the Enterprise flies off into the sunset. So, absolute classic, but this was a classic that really spawned another classic that is one of the most fun episodes of Deep Space Nine, which would be Trials and Tribulations, where they Forrest Gumped this episode into a plot line where our DS9 crew aboard the Defiant ends up tossed backwards in time and gets integrated into the events of this storyline. So, fun episode, lots of great fun lines. I can't say enough good things about it. I absolutely love it.
It's a fantastic episode. Growing up, when we didn't really have didn't have cable or anything.
Yeah.
So like the only thing that we could watch was like VHS recordings, and this was the only original series episode we had.
Yeah.
So
oh man,
this bad boy on repeat a lot. So like I know the Trouble with Tribbles really well. It's
my goodness, fun
and
stuff.
When they had that the exhibit down in Detroit, they actually had that little itty bitty model of the Enterprise that they stuck on a shelf in the window to make it look like it was orbiting the station. So I got to see that.
I remember that exhibit too. It was about back in 2009, I think it was. Saw that at the Detroit Science Institute.
Was 2 years ago. The
2009. Oh, gotcha. Oh, the other one. The one. Okay, gotcha.
Not in Detroit.
Wasn't it Henry Ford?
Village. It was at Greenfield.
Yeah, it was at Henry Ford. Yeah, I did not. There's a whole controversy. I didn't end up. I actually ended up boycotting that, but that's a whole other story. That had to do with the cosplay group I was involved in at the time and how we got snubbed by these people. So I was kind of sour about it. But who knows? Maybe it'll come around again. And And the Petoskey will get to represent. We'll see what happens. So, all right, moving on to episode 16. Peter, this one's all yours.
Episode 16, directed by Gene Nelson, written by Margaret Arman, aired January 5, 1968. The Gamesters of Triskelion.
I bid 12 quatlus on the newcomer.
13.
Go ahead.
The multicolored brains.
I love it. Yeah, exactly. Don't get too far ahead of yourself now. Go on.
Captain Kirk, Chekhov, and Uhura are kidnapped by powerful disembodied aliens by a trans-solar system transporter. And
absolutely. Why not?
And forced to fight in gladiatorial contests for the aliens' gambling entertainment. While trying to beam down to planet Gamma 2, you just said that. They are transported.
I totally did.
To Triskelion. And it's never been mapped by the Federation. So B-plot is the Enterprise has to find them. There, the three of them are trained in skills to fight from the trainers and the other beings called thralls. Any act of disobedience was met with pain through the collars around their necks. So those fancy triangles on their neck that you see.
Fancy triangles. There you go.
Yeah, the Enterprise, commanded by Spock, leaves Gamma 2, finds a hydrogen cloud with a mysterious energy field, and follows that to find them. On Triskelion, Kirk manages to impress the Providers and bonds with his thrall to learn more about the Providers. While trying to run away, the Providers show their true selves and wager a deal with Kirk for one last fight between Kirk and basically all the thralls. Kirk manages to defeat them, because he's Kirk, setting all the thralls free, and making the Providers teach the thralls all the knowledge they possess and allowing them to make a new society.
All right. Good stuff. Super duper silly episode in my opinion. You got Kirk romancing a precursor to Lady Gaga in a tinfoil outfit. You have the other guy is Elvis. You have an Andorian, and then you have just the butchest alien I've ever seen trying to seduce Chekhov. So it felt like kind of caricature after caricature. I don't know what they were trying to accomplish, but this episode really does have Kirk at his finest, kind of talking in a way, talking kind of outsmarting a computer, which is these three, like you said, the three brains in a jar. I build 12 quatlus for the newcomer. I build 17. I will bet that he will not. It's just the whole thing seems kind of silly. It's very Star Trek-y. But at the end of it, he's like, you learn things to know and to love and to get to space and he's very Shatner-y at the end, where he's like, and then she's like, I will look towards the points of stars and blah 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 and think, yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah, okay, buddy.
It's again Kirk using his charms to get what he wants, to get out of sticky situations,
or in this case, getting into one. Oh boy, what's that?
He does that too.
He does, yes, exactly. Oh, fortunately, they keep that off camera. Oh my goodness! Well, I was very fond of this next episode. I love this because I'm a fan of the Untouchables and series like that. But episode 17 is a piece of the action directed by James.
Piece of the action.
Yeah, you see it. Oh, you call? I don't take it personal. Quake, directed by James Comack, story by David P. Harmon, teleplay by David Harmon and Gene L. Kuhn, someone else, a big name in the series. January 12 of 1968, the Enterprise visits a planet with a violent culture based upon America's 1920 Prohibition era after receiving a 100-year late radio report from an old starship. Our classic trio of characters beam down and discover pretty much what I just told you. Everything was spawned basically from a book left behind by this old ship, the Horizon, 100 years hence, about the Mobs of Chicago from 1920. Realizing the Enterprise has to kind of reverse prime directive this situation, Kirk gets all the bosses together in one place and forms a syndicate where he's the boss with the ultimate aim of pretty much making that. It was funny, I fell asleep while I was watching this because it was on my tablet and I was in a hotel room. I was like, but I've seen the plot before. But yeah, Kirk does his thing. He organizes the syndicate by proving that kind of the Enterprise is the big boss, most powerful entity, and said that he'll be back for his cut. Though obviously, what Kirk is really going to do with his cut that he negotiated is to reinvest it in the planet, which is very Federation-like. But of course, what happens we find out that McCoy leaves his communicator behind, which in a lot of non-canon follow-ups, they said, oh, well, the society on this planet being so imitative decided to disassemble the communicator, and then they became a Federation planet. So whatever. I like to think that they just kind of went on being what they were. But it's fun. It's a campy episode, but it still has a good pro-Federation message, I think. I think that they still managed to pull that off.
Great moments where they're trying to figure out the lingo, where Kirk is using the lingo, no one knows what the heck he's talking about. And
where
the classic... Go ahead.
The flivver, which is the car, heater, or, put him on ice, put somebody in jail. And the classic is, of course, the card game of Fizbin.
Yes, Fizbin. And then one of my favorites that I love to point out to people, because I'm a nitpicker, Kirk can't drive a stick shift to save his life.
Oh my God, he knew how to get it into reverse. Yeah, because I don't think they went that much further from there. I'm trying to remember how that.
They went around the block. Like, he figured it out, but there was a point where it's like Spock looks at him like, Captain, your skills as a starship captain are exemplary, but your skills as a taxi driver leave much to be desired. Well, there's a point where it's like, we should drive back, and Spock's like, no, we need to work.
No. Oh my God! Well, I do. It does remind me of a similar scene in the 2003 episode of Star Trek Enterprise, Carpenter Street, where they go back to where it's T'Pol and Archer in my hometown of Detroit, Michigan, which, unbeknownst to me, has mountains in it. Because when they pull out for the final shot, there's the Detroit mountains, which I don't know if you're familiar with. Meaning it was filmed in California. But T'Pol and Archer have to abscond with a vehicle, and she says, do you know how to operate one of these things? And he's like, I can drive a starship. And he does figure it out, but it takes him a minute doing the P or D, or what do the letters mean? So yeah, it was kind of evocative of that. So I really dug it. But leaving from the silly episode, we get into a pretty serious allegory about the Vietnam War. So Peter, take it away.
Are we? The next one is the immunity syndrome.
Oh, okay. Then, much like in the last episode, I have scrolled too far. So, Peter, talk to me about the immunity syndrome. Not a very serious episode.
Episode 18, directed by Joseph Pevney again, written by Robert Sabaroff.
Robert S.
Yes. Aired on January 19, 1968. The immunity syndrome, the giant amoeba in space. The crew of the Enterprise encounters an energy-draining space creature. On their way to Starfleet Command Base 6, the Enterprise receives an order for a mission to check on Starship Intrepid in the Gamma 7 solar system. They find a black space covering the path of the system with no visible stars through it. Upon crossing into the space, the Enterprise begins to lose energy, and it is pulled into space towards a single-celled organism, which is massive, completely massive. After losing 2 probes to investigate the organism and failing in any attempt to pull away, Kirk chooses Spock to take the shuttlecraft into the organism membrane, investigate, and find a way to destroy it. Also, this is where the Intrepid died.
Ouch!
But the Intrepid died in here.
That's a toughie.
Spock finds out that the organism is about to reproduce. Oh no, we don't want more than this. And has a nucleus that can be attacked with a full charge of antimatter energy. Antimatter will do that.
Yeah, indeed it will.
Kirk then manages to send the probe with the help of Scotty, equipped with a timed bomb of antimatter, and the Enterprise begins to drift out of the membrane, grabbing the shuttlecraft with a tractor beam, and as they get out, the organism explodes. And the galaxy is saved from everything-eating giant space amoeba.
Right. I will not lie to you. I watched this one today, and I find this to be a very unmemorable episode. It's like, oh boy, super space anomaly. So less we say about that, the better. Let's move on to the episode I thought I was talking about, which is actually pretty significant. And then we're also running down on time, so we'll go through these kind of quick. But episode 19 is called A Private Little War, directed by Mark Daniels, story by Don Ignalus, and teleplay by Gene Roddenberry, which is a kind of reflective of kind of its significant tone. Captain Kirk must decide how to save a primitive people from the technological interference of the Klingons. Upon landing on a planet with a humanoid population, Kirk finds that half that population, led by his old friend Tyree, is still primitive, and the other half has firearms. Spock is shot and he is beamed back to the ship to recover. Kirk and McCoy must begin an investigation. Kirk is poisoned by a wild beast, the Mugato, not the very disgusting incarnation of the Mugato that we see in Lower Decks. The less said about that, the better. With the Enterprise unavailable to help, Tyree's wife, Nona, heals Kirk, but she also attempts to control both Kirk and Tyree. Great stereotype there about women. Yikes, trying to pit men against each other. Really not very not very forward thinking. I wasn't really super proud of that. But historically accurate. For a primitive society, if you will. After recovering, Kirk takes Nona away from the camp, but is attacked by her. She steals phaser and runs out of the enemy camp, but is killed in the ambush. Tyree agrees to use weapons to fight to protect his people. Kirk asks Mr. Scott to make firearms for the primitive people, serpents in the garden, to maintain a balance of power between the two camps. So, allegories all over the place. And I feel like you're much more intellectual than me, Peter. So you probably have a little bit more perspective on this than I do. I was always really felt that this was reflective of the Vietnam War, which was at its height in 1968, and the United States trying to balance the scales to fight communism, to stop it from taking over Southeast Asia. But ultimately, we do see how that worked out. So this is a story I think that without a doubt begged for a follow-up of some kind. But
oh yeah, it would have been good. They just never
Kirk did the exact opposite. And it's funny that there was a similar plot line, and as was very common in the first season of TNG, for the episode Too Short a Season, where you had a Starfleet captain 40 years prior to the episode, and so that captain was now an admiral, an ailing admiral, who said, well, 40 years ago, I did for this squabbling group exactly what Kirk does here. I gave weapons to the other side, my version of the Prime Directive. And so this was clearly Kirk's version of the Prime Directive, trying to balance the scales of power.
It's the classic, well, someone else screwed with the Prime Directive, so now we've got to balance it.
Right, yeah.
That shows up all the time. And it's one of those where it's like, you got to balance it. And so you're curious. It's curious to me of like, so damage has been done, so do we act to counteract it, or do we let it go because the Prime Directive tells us not to mess with it?
Exactly correct. So yeah, no, this was a great episode that I thought, and really, TOS episodes did not really have a lot of follow up. So we did see returns of characters like Harry Mudd, but again, that was really very satirical. But this was a plot thread that I think could have been pretty amazing in an episode of TNG or DS9 or something like that.
I mean, I would be okay with them bringing it back for something else later on.
Yeah, exactly.
They obviously can't touch it in Strange New Worlds because that takes place before.
Right, exactly correct. So yeah, it would have to be something. But this is just a classic. The social commentary, really what Star Trek does best, put into play with a rip from the headlines kind of thing, which happened. They did it in TNG with terrorism, like in the episode "The High Ground." They did it with rape and AIDS culture in the episode of Enterprise in season 2 that was called Stigma. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it really is. And this is, I think, one of the finest examples of that. So, all right, let's take it home with episode 20. Peter, it's all you.
Episode 20, directed by Ralph Sineski, written by John T. Dugan, aired on February 9th, 1968. Return to Tomorrow. Another one of those Tomorrow episodes, but not time travel.
Tomorrow, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're screwing with us with time travel.
So, telepathic aliens take control of Kirk, Spock, and Dr. Mulhall with the intention to build new android bodies for themselves. So this is after the Enterprise discovers a distress signal from a planet way out there, and they're contacted by a life form of pure energy that wants just 3 people to beam down. They meet Sargon, a conscious mind trapped in a machine. Sargon explains that his civilization traveled space, just like Kirk centuries ago, and left people on various star systems to colonize, and implies that perhaps they are the ancestors of humanity. They like to do that in the original series in TNG a lot. But a
little bit.
Anyway, this planet went to war where the people destroyed themselves except for a few. Sargon, his wife, and another remain alive like this and wish to take control of Kirk, Spock, and Dr. Mulhall so they can make android bodies for themselves. The Enterprise accepts their offer after deliberation, and Sargon begins to work. Side note: as these entities remain in the bodies, they start to overheat them. Their metabolism doesn't quite work with it, and so there's a possibility for them to die if they're in there too long.
So, Peter, would you say they were hot-blooded? Check it and see. Got a fever of 103?
Quite possible.
But I digress.
So to allow the body to sustain transformation, Henoch makes a potion, but then Henoch comes up with an idea to rid himself of Sargon so that Sargon's wife, whose name is escaping me because it's not written down.
It was Thalassa. I just watched it. This is the one that I just watched a couple hours ago. So there we go.
Yeah, so he plans to Thalassa, we should stay together in these bodies, not androids, because they can't feel anything. It's just a robot.
You can't love. Are you trying to say that androids don't have boy girl parts?
Hello, I'm Dayton. I wish to take issue with that.
Yeah,
but
he is fully functional.
Yeah, so he devises a plan. So Sargon, they think they kill him. He's not dead, and then they cause Henoch to poof into oblivion. And then Sargon and Thalassa also decide to enter oblivion together because we've lived too long and we're just going to be a problem. And so, bye.
Right. Dust in the wind. Sing it with me, Peter. All we are is dust in the wind. Oh, my gosh. Completely irrelevant episode.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting in the sense that it's like a classic Star Trek trope of bringing an alien race and, let's see how they interact with modern society. This is actually a trope that I would like to see come back, but in a different way.
Right. I get it.
I think it'd be an interesting trope to be like, how does the past live in the present?
That's
a topic. Because I think that's one of the things that Star Trek does really well as well. I think, honestly, it gets better on this than it does on the social commentary, is just commenting on the human experience.
True.
Well, social commentary.
I mean, and again, every Star Trek series has that character Spock or Odo in DS9 or Data in TNG that is the non-human character that reflects upon humanity. Like, well, it's so weird that humans do that, and and why does this thing or that thing? So, yeah, I get where you're coming there from. Special note: this was one of 2 original series episodes that guest starred actress Diana Muldaur, who later goes on to be the special guest star in season 2, but not a cast member in season 2 of Dr. Catherine Pulaski, who takes the place of Gates McFadden's character, Dr. Crusher, who leaves and comes back. But Dr. Pulaski was really meant to be a TNG spin on Dr. McCoy being crusty and disliking the transporter. So I always liked Dr. Pulaski just fine. I liked her just fine. I would love to have seen her return in some way, shape, or form. So, but anyway, that is what wraps us up for this segment of talking about season 2 of Star Trek than the original series. So we will conclude this with next week's episode, and then Peter, you're taking a little vacation because our friend Katie Quinn is going to be coming on and talking with me, doing recaps about season 2 of TNG. So just wanting to share the love a little bit. So you get a little hiatus before I bring you back to talk about the series after that, which will be Deep Space Nine season 2, if I'm not mistaken.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So, well, cool. Well, with that, Peter, why don't you take us on out of here?
For more information about Starfleet International, please visit Grand Petoskey and or Region 13 on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. And friends, as always, thank you for joining us. Find us over on Twitter at Secret Friends U. I'm going to tell you, as always, that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
Oh, yeah.
Broadcasting from across the North American continent of the Terran Empire, bringing you our unpopular Star Trek opinions since 2020. This is Code 47.